It's very nice to see you all again. And so my role here this morning is to present the Future Us roadmap to the prevention of elder abuse. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation that just walks you through what's in the strategy. And then what I really want to talk to you about, though, is mobilizing on the ground. What are we going to do with Future Us? So I don't know if have you had a chance to look at the website or the report? Okay, so this is a little bit for me. I'm unsure what's most helpful then. I can do the overview for those of you who haven't had a chance to look at it. That probably makes the most sense. And so I just need to see a couple. Do people want to see the overview? Okay.
Just a quick one. Yeah, because I looked at the roadmap when it first came out last month.
Okay. So I will put this up on the screen then, and it just keeps me organized. And then we can talk after about, how you see using it, really, because that's the most important, piece for me. Sorry, I just have to, there. I came without things open. Thank you. Okay, and I've talked to you about this a couple of times. Some of you will have been on lots of PowerPoint presentation calls with me. And so I'm not going to cover everything. I'm just going to hit the high points of it. So we did launch it on March the 24th. And oh, that was not intentional. That's the website. And that is, okay, I've lost my screen. Hang on. Because I clicked on my own link. There it is. I've never done that before. Okay, and then we've talked in the past about the partners that were involved in the development of the strategy, and we had some funding from the Department of Justice to bring people together and to create the materials. And we also did consultations with Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario and the other provincial and territorial networks that really came together, and we've been meeting as a community of practice around the It's Not Right program for many years now. And then we did consultations with different folks in the communities where they don't have a provincial territorial network. And, so it's important for us that we're not speaking for communities. Really what we want to do is spark dialogue, exactly like coming together today to talk about how we're going to advance, this strategy and to get things moving in Canada. So we do want local communities to adopt it and for governments to recognize the urgent need to focus on prevention and to make strategic investments on that. It is designed as a pan-Canadian project because there's disparity in the country in terms of investments in elder abuse by different provinces, territories, and we see very little investments being made at the municipal level. So that's a little bit about what we want to advance here, is a sense that it's ageist not to make investments on addressing this complex social issue as we do other issues. So these are the three goals: prioritizing prevention in every community. That's the big job ahead of us. And then we have a focus in the second goal on establishing the networks as an infrastructure across Canada that sits at the local, the regional, and the national levels. And then, of course, teaching everyone to recognize, respond, and refer. We go right back to the basics. It is important to acknowledge that this is not new. It's like, this is the work that's already happening. What we want to do is consolidate and build on what is already working. And this activity of learning how to pool our actions to achieve collective goals is the work ahead of us. So the strategy is really just the beginning. of the long game that we're playing in terms of addressing the issue, in educating people about elder abuse, and engaging them in developing solutions at a local level. It is absolutely true that we're going to build this road as we walk it. And so the guide itself is broken into different sections. So that's what I'll do next. I'll just give you a quick overview of the sections. And in the PDF version, the tabs along the side are animated, so it will take you wherever you want to go in the roadmap quite quickly. The first section is about the research that sits underneath this and the definitions and a picture about where we're starting from. So we reference the ageism study that was done in 2012, just to acknowledge how prevalent ageism is. And there's a quote there from the World Health Organization about, the problems that the insidious ways that people are disadvantaged as they age, and how it erodes solidarity between the generations. I've never felt more sort of a sense of urgency about this than I do right now. So linking ageism with elder abuse is part of the dots we need to connect. And here's the nice study with the sort of what we learned from that study that was done in 2015 about prevalence. And of course, it's always important to acknowledge to people that prevalence rates are always low because people don't report for different reasons. They talk about the risk factors and, where the abuse is concentrated in spouses, family members, friends, neighbors, and acquaintances. It's the people right around the situation. We do talk a little bit about the different forms of elder abuse, trying to help people remember that it's not just physical violence, and that also it has a systemic and structural element. We talk about the lack of dedicated services and that as a dire kind of situation, and then point to some of the places where we really need to be drawing attention. The violence response ecosystem is generally funded to respond after the crisis. So it's a reactive state that we're in, generally speaking. And there's little recognition or attention paid to elder abuse that's happening in people's homes. So we're tilting against some of the myths about, older people end up inevitably in long-term care homes and things like that. So it's institutional abuse. So we have to help educate on this. Little need for the recognition of specialization for anyone really who's working with older populations, that they have to be trained to recognize warning signs and indications, how to know when a situation is escalating and what to do about it. And of course, there's little or no risk management happening anywhere in Canada. And risk management is working with the people who are causing the harm. So that's not going, that's a real problem, again, across the whole violence response ecosystem. So generally, all of this is an argument to say we have to move upstream toward prevention if we're ever going to get ahead of the curve. So we do reference the World Health Organization and the ecological model, just to say that you cannot have responses just at the individual level. You have to think about responding, beyond the individual and the relationships around them, in the communities in which they live, and at a societal level. You have to have a holistic approach to actually addressing the issue, because you put things into place at each of these levels that need to be coordinated, and there has to be an appreciation for the ways in which policy and program directions impact on people's lives. So, we're also educating around the societal nature of the issue. So I come back to the goals again to talk about them a little more specifically. So I just said that, the goal to identify it as a priority issue in every community. We're serious about this, and we want to track this. So I'll talk a little more about how we'll do that toward the end. The focus really is on the second goal, is about building infrastructure. And so in in the guide, we talk about what the networks are already doing at different levels and how this needs to be aligned and supported so that we have this infrastructure by which information and ideas can flow up, down, and across the system. We estimated costs based on what we know about existing networks and where there's sort of precedents that have been set for funding. And we're making a case to governments that, to do really a social return on the investments, there has to be integrated and aligned funding and cost sharing. I know it's kind of a wild idea to think about organizing ourselves in this way, but it's a strategy. Like, this is the direction we need to go in. So these will be the conversations we're having with different levels of government. And the Canadian network, for example, has no funding whatsoever other than project funding, which is like the local networks. There's no funding happening that supports that work, which I would argue is fundamentally ageist, because you cannot expect volunteers to do the work. Busy people who have full-time, you can't do it off the side of your desk. You have to actually focus on it. So we're looking at cost sharing where sort of successive levels of government can incent governments below them to participate. Ontario is the only province that has some precedent in terms of funding the networks, in that Ontario funds violence against women coordinating committees in Ontario to the tune of about $30,000 a year. Those committees are also advocating for municipal support. We're, trying to get those numbers up a little bit, because if local networks had a coordinator, had some stable funding, you think about what you already do and think about what you could do if you had some support. So this is the gist of this argument, and really, what we're going to talk about together. We acknowledge, so again, we need to zoom out to the pan-Canadian approach, because we do want to be able to show progress over time. So this is where we're starting from currently, in terms of provinces and territories that have some of these pieces in place, and we want to be able to show progress over time. We spend time talking about what the prevention networks do. And so this is just, give you a sense about what's important, what's possible, and what's already happening. And this is all about collective action and sharing ideas. And then the next section, oh, sorry, somebody's got their, okay, somebody needs to mute for me, just because I can't, I get distracted so easily. It's a little bit like squirrel. Thanks. So the next section is all about how to contribute, the idea of starting from where we are. So we talk about citizens, what can citizens do, and point to it's not right as the way that we can, it's one of the ways that we can teach everyone. We can follow this, this is an evidence-based program that, understands that if it's the people right around the situation that the violence and abuse is happening to, then we need to be educating everyone how to recognize, respond, and refer. We point to it's not right also as a demonstration of the value of supporting networks in the provinces and territories where there are investments in those networks. At the provincial territorial level, it's not right has really taken root and continues to be offered. So imagine if local networks were also supported to do that kind of work. And then just some of the messaging around. This is part of the, the big picture about helping people understand that these complex issues are never going to change unless we can mobilize people on the ground and help people see that we really are part of something, that we can make a difference, we can change. You can see advances over the last few years. So, really putting our efforts together and learning how to work collectively is the work ahead. So engagement is the key. We encourage people to join their local networks or to start one if they don't have one, and then engaging local politicians at all levels of government, with some specific asks around here's the strategy. Here's what we want you to do. We're asking for your support. You're going to get old too. You need to be caring about this issue and helping us. We talk about organizations and what organizations can do. I've talked about this in the past, that at an organizational level, every organization needs to be concerned about ageism in their work to become more equitable. When we're talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion, ageism needs to be one of those protected rights that has to be considered. So how do organizations engage in ageist practices and policies within their organization, and then in working with the public? So again, getting the dialogue going. I point to the trauma and violence informed work that the Public Health Agency of Canada has sponsored as a program of action that can support increasing equity in your organizations. It's another way of kind of connecting dots and building on investments that have already been made. And for me, the trauma and violence informed principles and practices are another way to coordinate our services and across multiple disciplines and sectors, because it speaks a common language about reducing harm and increasing equity. And then the communities. This is the really big piece on that first goal around how are we going to identify that, recognize that communities have to recognize elder abuse as a priority issue. So we include actions and also point to places where we can drive this conversation at the local level. So in Ontario, we have a wellness strategy that Solgen, the Ministry of the Solicitor General, put out that was supposed to be realized, I think, last July. So it was a mandate coming out from Solgen that every community has to have a safety and well-being plan. And so my question is, in your community, what is your municipality's plan, and is elder abuse part of that? And if it's not, how can it become part of that plan? And who are the people that need to be engaged? So this is a sort of the on the ground thinking about how to drive this conversation. The age-friendly movement is another really important place that has had a lot of uptake across Canada, but that very often doesn't include measures and a recognition of the issue of elder abuse. And so if you are an age-friendly community that doesn't include elder abuse in your plan and isn't supported by the municipality, then the conversation is, how can you consider yourself to be an age-friendly community if you're not addressing the well-being, the safety of older people? So there's those kinds of conversations. And then there's also, this is a piece of work I think that we have to do, is also putting materials together to support communities in convening and hosting dialogue about elder abuse with diverse communities and intergenerational conversations around elder abuse and ageism. Rather than trying to create one table where you have representatives, I think that what we have to do is around engagement and convening different groups of people to talk about what the issue means to them. I know with the It's Not Right material, some of the most interesting work that we've done with that program is sitting with communities talking about what does elder abuse mean in the South Asian community and an Indigenous community. How is it? How are the materials that we've created relevant for them? How might they need to be changed? Those were some of the most interesting conversations. And people want to not always be starting over with new materials. There's a large Cree community in Quebec that have taken the It's Not Right content as kind of an inspiration for them to create their own materials. So part of what the networks can do, with the networks, we can share those kinds of adaptations and learnings that happen across the country. This is the way that we optimize investments that are being made. And so that's, again, goes to the idea of a pan-Canadian approach. But the work sits at the local level, really, so much of it. And then we also want to help people understand that it's a societal level issue. As long as people are struggling to survive, violence rates go up. And so we have to help people see that these are social issues should not be competing with each other. They're signals of a failing society that is not looking after people's basic needs around a living income and affordable housing, secure food, equity in all its forms. So this is also part of the conversation. We need large scale solutions as well. There's a section for researchers. We speak specifically to government in that about what we're asking government to do. And we talk about the integrated and aligned infrastructure investments to work toward this, so that there is this sort of top-down support for the strategy. And then we align with the global initiatives referencing, you know, any of these large global projects only has meaning in, you know, when local communities, local groups pick them up and start to work with them. So Future Us is just part of that alignment with the, you know, sort of global responses. It's a made in Canada strategy about moving upstream toward prevention on elder abuse. And then we also want to be aligned with the, you know, the other Canadian strategies. It's a mistake. It is wrong for us to have to compete for funding on these issues. We need sort of a larger strategy about how we're approaching things as a society. So I come right back to the very beginning. I've used this slide since we first started talking with you and other groups around what we're at here. So the development of the strategy over here is the Canadian network and the partners who've developed that strategy. And then we've done this organizing with the Canadian network and all of the It's Not Right partners in the provincial and territorial networks, creating and communicating around how we can pull together in the same direction, push together in the same direction. So now this is where we are today, talking with you about how can we mobilize, you know, with you around these common goals, and you know, what are the ongoing activities that actions that we can engage in to put pressure on, to engage government as partners on this issue that we have to address. So that's my little overview of the Future Us strategy. And, you know, really what I wanted to talk with you about today is, you know, what does this mean to you? Does it give you ideas about things you can do? And, you know, I always recognize that you are the people who are working off the sides of your already busy desks, and that probably most of your networks are comprised of, you know, similar groups. Oh, so we have created a toolkit that's on the website that has some template letters. We tested some of that out with you over the course of this past year. So there are template letters for the local networks, so that you don't have to, you know, do all of that thinking, and so they can be adapted, but it is designed to give you a little bit of support. You likely have relationships with all of your, you know, local politicians now. We want to be knocking on their door more regularly around what are we doing about this, and you know, what's your party doing about this, especially, you know, during election year. You know, all candidates meetings. You know, is there conversation happening? What are people's platforms on elder abuse and neglect? So the toolkit is there. We'll be adding to that as we go. I see that as a beginning. And there's where you can also provide lots of input about what would be helpful. What do you need? Sometimes it's just language. You just need some language. I think that there's also advice about when meeting with politicians, we want to be asking consistently for some of the same things. So now I'll stop.
Can I go ahead? I have a quick question. Is there anything for older adults themselves? Like, is there some sort of a card? Like, we're going to start getting more out in the community. So as things are lightening up and we're going to be out there in the community, is there anything, you know, like a pledge sheet or anything like that for older adults to voice their opinions as well on this?
Well, older adults can also advocate with their local politicians. Absolutely. And so there is language in the templates that are there, but I think, Anna, this is the kind of conversation that we can have together about approaches and, you know, what it could be. We can create kind of a smorgasbord of options to engage in. So I think that that's an idea that hasn't really been developed that much, but we can certainly talk about it.
Like, Olivia's our new program coordinator, and she's going to be out at events, and I'm just thinking there's going to be older adults that will be at some events. Yes. And how do we engage them? Is there anything in the toolkit more specifically for them, I guess, is where my thought process is going, besides just that the letter, you know, of course they can use that letter for the MPPs, etc., but is there anything more specific for them in this toolkit?
Well, not so much in the toolkit, but I would say the It's Not Right content also, you know, is good information for them to have if they don't have it. So maybe, you know, we could do a little bit of strategizing around what's available, how to engage older adults in this, you know, in this movement, really, that we are making happen. I also think WeAd is another place to push out a future us and to engage people in conversation. I know Marta and Rayanne can speak to that as well.
Yeah. So this June event in June that Olivia will be out at, it's going to be decorated for WeAd, and we have all the merch that Lily sent out and all of that. So exactly where my thoughts were, and how can we also incorporate this into that as well.
Yeah, I want to come back to that. I'm already having some thoughts about it. I bet you have some ideas about tangible pieces that would be helpful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Marta?
I put up my hand because, again, being involved in this, you know, everyone's been doing the heavy lifting, but I have to say how impressive this piece really is. And everything is so beautifully packaged. It's digestible. It's not, you know, big flowery language. It really gets to the core of what we're trying to do in terms of messaging. We had a board meeting yesterday, and one of the things that came out in this is like, well, what can we do more? Well, here's the thing. We're Ontario Working Group. We're in the midst of an election. And nowhere in any of those election platforms is the word elder abuse even mentioned. Yeah. We talk about safety. We talk about aging well. It's, again, flowery language, but it misses the mark. This, I believe very strongly, and I am almost forcing my board members to do this. Get out to your local levels, get out to all levels of government, because the pressure can come from municipal, it can come from federal representatives. But where is the issue of elder abuse on any of their radars?
Yep. We're
going into another debate, and just stand by for what we're going to be doing.
You know, I would also argue that the federal government is about to release a national action plan on violence against women, and older women are not mentioned in it.
No.
It's outrageous.
If you don't mind me jumping in, I'm just utterly shocked with the election at this time. Just knowing what COVID's done and how it really did shine that light. Yeah. And I hate putting it in a positive spin on what was really going on with our seniors. So I find it absolutely disgusting. And I think we have to find a way to bring that back to the forefront, for probably through the use of media, bringing stories forward. If we have some really brave seniors out there who want to get more involved and boisterous about what has happened to them, whether that be 60 Minutes or W5 or Fifth Estate or our local news stations, because I think what happens is we've sort of hidden it again, which is awful, because everybody's getting on that bandwagon. Oh, well, COVID's almost over, we're getting back out, and it's almost like we forgot about it, which is disgusting. Just to let you know, we've been running a series here at York Regional Police, and we do it 2 times a year. And it's called OASIS, and it's an older adult safety information series. So we are, this month, we're running 4 at this time. And then we will be doing it every spring and every fall. And we're reaching out to our older population asking, what would you like to see? What kind of lectures would you like to know about, that type of thing. So I'm happy to announce that we had something that we don't normally do. We usually do a lot of, I guess, organization and getting guest speakers in, but this time our York Regional Police Business Planning Department asked if they could hop on. So on Tuesday, it was the first time, and what YRP has acknowledged through us driving them crazy, and that means our senior safety team, saying that we need more officers, we need more training in this area, and we need to start strategizing what's going to happen in the future. So our business planning came to this meeting. They explained what they were trying to do and what they wanted to do. And as a result of the new business plan coming out in 3 years, they are now speaking to our seniors, asking them what their concerns are, what York Regional Police is doing wrong, what we could do better, what are their concerns within the community. And hopefully this whole thing is going to be incorporated. It's going to be printed out to the public with our views and where we are going with our seniors within York Region. So we are giving them a voice now. And I think it's great. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to come out.
That's great, Monica. Thank you.
Yeah, so excited.
You know, I'm thinking about this group as I would like to have an ongoing conversation with this group, you know, maybe every other month or something over the coming year around what's happening around the strategy. Let's try things together. So Anna, to your point, you know, if you have like a little bullet list of things that you'd like to see made available on that idea, send it to us. And we'll, you know, we'll make something happen. Any of you, if you have ideas about tools that can facilitate this, because this really is the learning that we need to do, is how to put our energy together. Just in Ontario is you know, you're such a productive group for us to be working with because you are already doing a lot of these things. So it's the collective piece that I'm most interested in. So pieces for seniors to add their voice to it, to use Future Us. So we want them to use Future Us to have conversations. How can you use that at your We Add events as well? And so Rayanne, do you have some thoughts about, yeah.
Yeah, so a couple things. So just building up what you just said about, you know, continuing to meet and talk about this and with all the networks. So we are developing a provincial elder abuse committee. So okay, we get together talking with the provincial chairs to speak, you know, sort of what's going on. You know, we get 5-10 minutes kind of thing at the provincial meetings, but we've kind of shifted also to incorporate a provincial elder abuse coordinating committee, similar to the VAWCCs, and that will be probably.
Oh no.
Rianne's heading out, but we're trying to do this sort of bi-monthly. But it is, again, less us talking at the network chairs, but it's more talking with and getting at some of these core issues so that we can propel this a little bit further. Mm-hmm. So the touch base meeting is one thing on a monthly basis, but actually having this coordinating committee working together, and you know, this group would decide then what are those core issues that we want to work at, and then we just throw everything against it.
If I could just add a bit, I apologize, I was late. I was on another Zoom meeting before I was able to, but I did come on when Anna was speaking, and I have to agree with Anna. Based on previous experience, when you're looking at lobbying, that's one thing coming from service providers, but it also can be interpreted as self-serving.
Mhm.
Hear from, or when the politicians are hearing from the community as a large, rather than a service agency, then you're going to hear that in a different way than what they hear from potentially self-serving positions seeking service providers for funding.
Mhm.
I think we need to focus more on having older adults be part of the process. I like what you just said there, Marta, about rather than speaking at the committees or the networks, speaking with them and engaging. That same should be done for the people we're serving in our communities.
Yeah.
And asking them if they are giving them the opportunity to decide if they want to write a letter. And in my experience through my organization that I'm with right now, the Alzheimer's Society, having that standard letter already available where they just have to tweak a little bit and leave room for any personal comments is the ideal. The fact that somebody sitting down and composing a letter, self-advocate, is just another task that they might have on top of many other things that they're involved with. But also not everybody feels that they are, you know, a great letter composer. Having that available for if they are interested in sharing this with their local politician, then all they have to do is be part of that. So having a standard letter for them, and if anybody is, much like in those testimonials, they speak more than what we'll ever speak. So I think moving forward, we need to look less at what we're seeking and voicing, and more of what the older adult is seeking and voicing, because their agenda is the same as ours, only it's going to be heard more powerful than what ours will.
It's that lived experience, right? So, and Dion, is it that working with them, anyone who knows me, especially all of our staff, I always use that we work with them, not for them, and don't forget about them. They are the center of what we're doing. So sometimes we speak over them, or we speak to others around them, but we forget of the patient, the person that's at the center. So I think that's very powerful. And I just wasn't sure if we were missing that piece.
Well, for me, that's central to what we're doing always. And on the local networks, a lot of the local networks that I've had contact with, there are older people who are just there as themselves and who are informing that group and making decisions about what's important. So I feel like the local networks are the conduit to that.
So if in the toolkit, there was a standard letter that,
yes,
when we're doing information days, and we're doing ads, but you know, here in Niagara, we're doing days all the time, have been through COVID on Zoom, and now have that accessible, we would probably see a greater response. Those that sit on the networks that are older adults, they're people that have chosen to be on the network. The elder abuse has a greater meaning to them because it's been a personal experience or something they know.
Yeah.
You're reaching a larger population of older adults when you're making that available across the board in each region.
Yeah,
just for
absolutely.
those people that are on networks.
It's an invitation to join us from really everywhere in society. That's what we're working on here. And I just want to push back a little bit. I think it's important that it's not about lobbying. It really is about engaging in informing. I think a lot of the politicians don't even know what their party position, whether there's a party position, what the issue is, why they should care about this in their local ridings. And so that's what I see. It's more about informing, educating, engaging local politicians, asking them to work with us. It's not always about the funding. I do have some specific pieces in it that we're looking for around funding, but honestly, we have to change the sort of the dynamics, the relationship around having to fight over scraps of funding for such complex issues. The pandemic really should have illustrated. I'm still waiting for how we're going to get out of it, but how interconnected we are, and it's in all of our interests to work for this kind of change. So that's important in the sense of why Future Us. And this is simultaneous action. It's not just at the citizen level, it's at all levels. So, you know, in your organizations, in your communities, and as a province, each of you will have different places that interest you, that you can see things. Like Anna's has this place, Dion, that seems to resonate for you. It will resonate for others. Part of what we want to do collectively is look for those places of resonance, put the tools together that allow you to do exactly what you're describing, because you're the best positioned, but to create some options, because I think that we can do simultaneous actions, you know, if we're connected. So the provincial table is perfect.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. I think the creation of this Future Us is sort of a hub. And then everybody parses out what is, you know, closest to them or what they feel more comfortable doing. The funding piece is almost the cost of doing business. This should not have to be something we have to lobby for and fight for every single year. And as you said, it's always the scraps. It's more so the momentum and the movement that we collectively do, but we all have our local communities or our local MPPs that we can have a relationship with, make sure that it continues to be on their radar. Lobbying or not, we did go through an awareness campaign with all the MPPs across the province. I have personally spoken to 27 of them, okay, and getting that meeting and getting them in there and having them not cancel 3 minutes before the Zoom is about to start. I mean, it was an exercise that was really eye-opening for us, but it also allowed us to identify who those champions would be. Where my disappointment currently is again, on none of those election platforms is the word elder abuse even appear. Yeah. So you can just imagine the letters now that I am writing to those individuals to go, hello, did we miss something? And you still have an opportunity.
So it's about being relentless and persistent over time. Olivia.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm from Houston. I'm a coordinator. I just have a question about caregiver burnout. Is there any specific tools that address that? I know that in your presentation you spoke about how it's more systematic rather than systemic, rather than focusing on, you know, elder abuse in homes. So, you know, finding a way to address caregiver burnout. I know Anna and I had a conversation about how sometimes, you know, caregiver burnout will, result in elder abuse.
So those sorts of issues that are related I believe there are lots of resources and tools that you can use if you want to advance that conversation. So that's a little bit about also identifying what your priorities are as a group, right? You know, essentially what I'm asking you to do today is to think about your own local community and what's it going to take to get your community on board to say, yes, we recognize elder abuse as a priority issue, and here's how we are responding to it. So on the Future Us website, we have created one of those maps where we want to be able to show over time communities that tick that box. So did you get it into your safety and well-being plan? Is it part of your age-friendly? Are you working on the sustainable development goals? Like whatever the gem of your community is around social change and equity, where is elder abuse in that? And so I think that could be, that's a great discussion at your local tables. Just to,
I have to disagree, Margaret. I really do.
In what sense, Dion?
In the sense that there needs to be a standardized message, and there is some issues that are universal.
Yes.
Caregiver burnout should be on everybody. There needs to be a standard message that is not the community. Caregiver burnout is one of those.
Yes.
Across the board, and it's due to under-resourcing in many different programs and the impact that has. I think we need a tool, and I think, as Marta was saying, those conversations with 27 MPPs. What are we missing? We're missing those testimonials. We're missing those people that are joining you for those meetings, that it's a personal experience. Again, I see lobbying and awareness building as one and the same. It's all in how you engage, but end goal is what we're all hoping to achieve. So it's a form of lobbying. Part of that is bringing those personal stories, and not us saying them, but if there's a willing person, and that's the only gem I see in the communities, is if somebody's willing within our own communities to go with us to those meetings and engaging, because their stories are the ones that are going to be heard. But I do think there needs to be a standard sort of message across that encompasses much of what is happening, regardless of what community we're in. Otherwise, we'll be seen as a hodgepodge of information about elder abuse.
So I don't think we disagree at all, Dion. That is the purpose of Future Us, is to create a common message with 3 common goals, 3 universal goals that we are working to. But you also have to recognize that communities are in different places, and they will, they will work on different parts of the problem that makes sense to them. So there has to be that kind of flexibility. But I think, to your point, you're absolutely right. Those are the issues. And if you have people, older people who are citizens who want to support this, then it's like the network is supporting those people in advancing the conversation. How that happens in your community is, for sure, it has to resonate. You have to have the people. But it is a common sort of movement that we are making. We are working on the same goals.
So the toolkit provides that, but we each choose out of what is most applicable into our community and how best we feel it would be effective. So if it means having, testimonials or older adults coming with you to talk to the politicians, then so be it. You may have a relationship with somebody, but I think the idea of this centralized idea is that we're all talking about the same things. Like we're no longer having to redefine what is elder abuse. Like we know what it is. We know how we're going to convey that message. It's where you take that is really community based.
So the common goal is to get to prevention.
Yeah.
And the way we get to prevention is by prioritizing it as an issue in every community, giving people opportunities to participate and to engage in the issue from wherever they are in the system, and teaching everyone how to recognize, respond, and refer. Those are the 3 goals that we're working on. And I think that part of the interesting thing about collective action is that it will look a little bit different in different places. But you can see, if we do this right, you can see that we're actually working on the same thing. So, things like caregiver burnout, that sits at a system level like that, exactly as you're saying. That is because of the way in which the issue is ignored and, pushed off onto families. And, there's not enough resources. That's a system level issue. So it comes back to that sort of the ecological model and why we need to be engaging politicians in the system level thinking about how violence and abuse across the ages increases when people have to struggle to survive. And so, we're working on this piece of it, but it is part of the larger conversation about the sustainability of our society. So I do think it's important for us to align our efforts and to talk about the different things that we're doing, but as much as possible, stick to the same kind of messaging. So I want to be developing the templates. So I made a note just as we were talking, Anna. I can draft up a letter to the politicians, for this election cycle exactly. And I'm interested in your list. And then let's put it together. We can do that fairly quickly. So I think we can be a fairly responsive group in terms of taking good ideas and putting them into some form that you can take out and use and try. And as you try the tools, it will also inform our next steps and the, sort of what we do and how we grow this.
I think there's a huge opportunity right now. And again, there is a sense of urgency around the election itself. Get out to your local MPPs, you know, whoever your contacts are within all levels of government, and say, did you know? Where is this in the campaign? Where is this as part of your election platform? And then a follow-up on June the 3rd, whoever is elected, to say, is this your mandate? Is this part of your working thing? And if not, we're here to talk to you about how it can be advanced. I mean, this is, you know, kind of being a gnat in the eyeball, but this is what we need to do. We need to be persistent and unrelenting.
Unrelenting.
There you go.
And supporting each other. Like, it's hard work. And I think that that's another piece about coming together like this is, you know, addressing the isolation and the feelings of being overwhelmed about trying to do something about such a big issue.
Just a quick question. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just a quick question. I don't know if Marta or Rianne has this answer, but is there an, or yourself, Margaret, an upcoming INR education for Olivia to take?
We can arrange for her to be part of something, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, Rianne, you're back.
No, I have my phone overheated, of all things, and then it shut down. So I had to find a cool space for it. I apologize. I had an appointment this morning and I haven't been able to get back home before the meeting. Yeah, I mean, I think I think it would be really important just to follow up with all the network chairs and come up, if you and I, maybe Margaret, we can work on that letter and we can put it on, make it available to the networks. We had stuff on our website now, and, you know, get people rolling around that municipal action piece, or the MPPs, that action. And like Dion was saying, like, have that standardized, you know, we have the goals, right? Like, we don't want to divert from that if that's kind of where we're at, but individually, each community is going to be a little bit different in how they streamline that.
Yes.
But then, you know, focus, because each province, Margaret and we've been talking to the different provinces now that this has been released, and asking them sort of what they're doing. So each province is different in their approaches of how they implement the main goals into their either province or local regional areas that they work in. So yeah, so we can figure out what's best for us. And I like the idea of the testimonials. And, you know, we have some testimonials we could probably get from different individuals. People always make comments sometimes in our after our webinars, or, you know, identifying that they're willing to speak after webinars. So there are people we potentially could reach out to, or people know people in their communities, or police officers like Monica, you might know someone who's spoken to you. So I think there is value in that as well.
Yeah, you know, as I said, it's a start of a conversation. So do go look at the templates and what's in the toolkit and add your ideas, give your feedback. Listen, I'm not like, if you don't agree with something, like, let's talk about it for sure, because I think that, you know, we need to be thinking critically about how to use the time that we have, how to be selective about how to move this forward. So it would be also very useful just to have do a little canvas about how many communities in Ontario actually identify elder abuse already as a priority issue. Are there any? Like, and if so, how do you recognize that? Maybe that would be a goal that we could put out to the network chairs, just to, you know, do a little look on your municipal website if it's even mentioned. And then, you know, maybe that forms a basis for us to think about next steps for coming together again.
Margaret, I know you've been stretched, and you can probably do this presentation with your eyes closed and asleep. We do have a network chairs meeting scheduled for next week. I think it would be important for you to touch base with the larger group and carrying some of this messaging, and maybe even just, you know, translating what we heard today, is that there is some level of urgency in communicating with, you know, the Ontario running politicians and getting that messaging out. Yeah. So if you can, we'd love to have you, even for a couple of minutes.
If I can, I absolutely will. But and we'll work on this little template letter for ordinary people just to use while the election cycle is happening. So Anna, send me your bullets and we'll work on that. So I see we're at the noon hour.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all of this.
The one thing I was just thinking, Margaret, too, is, you know, we have the map of Canada and we're asking people to put themselves on the map. But if we in Ontario kind of do that sort of, you know, do you have it in your, like a scan or report card, kind of like what we did for this when we did the provinces, but make it more micro and say, you know, in Niagara they don't, but in Durham they do this or that, or whoever's doing what, right? So then we can, it's almost like that shaming of the different municipalities. Or, you know, do you have it in your age-friendly plans? Like we are working on that. We have a collaboration with them, and just building on that, I think we also, you know, need to expand that outreach that we do with other, you know, VAWCCs and build our stronger network where we fit in with that gender-based violence initiatives as well.
If I might suggest, like, where each of us work, like I've been working my board, you know, unrelentingly, I keep using that word, wherever you work, wherever you know, gather for community events, whatever else, like start slapping this stuff in front of people. You'd be surprised the champions that will come out of the walls and woodwork wanting to join in on this. Is like, okay, I know this is an issue, didn't really know this was happening. Just bringing awareness to the fact that this piece exists and all the tools within it that can be reused.
Well, and there's an infographic. There's an infographic, so they don't have to read the whole report to get the gist of it. There's a handout in the toolkit that will also boils it down to the goals and the actions.
Yeah. So maybe just thinking outside of, you know, not just our particular job, but, you know, the environment that we function in every day, or our community engagement. Sometimes you don't think about it, but I'm going to be peppering all throughout the church on Sunday, you know, so think outside the box.
Is there anything else anyone wants to throw into the mix? Or I really appreciate your time and ideas. Okay. If you have ideas when you get off the call, just send us an email.
No, thanks, Margaret. I think you summed this up just very well. I've been looking at the report. It's easy to read. It's easy to maneuver through. I'm just going through some of the stuff on the internet here, and I thanks for all the work. I think it's great, and we're here just to champion through your regional police to deal with our seniors, and hopefully we're going to see some improvement over the next year or two.
Indeed. Yes, we don't give up. We don't go away. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.